I'm staying at home. You're in the business, but you're still a fan. And every Monday night, I'm watching Monday Night Raw just like everybody else. And I'm sitting there watching, and all of a sudden, Jerry Lawler starts running down. There's a fan with an ECW sign. He rips up the sign, starts talking trash on ECW. I'm like, oh, that was awkward. Kind of cool, but awkward. Then out of nowhere, Paul E calls into the live feed of Monday Night Raw, and starts talking trash to Lawler. They're cutting promos on each other back and forth. And Paulie, wow, we'll be there next week on Monday Night Raw. And I'm like, oh, holy shit, this is kind of cool. And then Jerry Lawler goes, oh, who are you going to bring? The Blue Meanie? I was like, oh my God, Jerry Lawler just said my goddamn name on Monday Night Raw. I'm trying not to mark out, but I'm marking out. So we go to the TVs the next week, and Paulie pulls us aside and says, the BWO, along with, the Eliminators, gave us all the name, your book for Monday Night Raw. Awesome. Fucking cool, right? Because we were trying to, build up our first pay-per-view, so this is great exposure. So we go through that weekend shows. That Monday, we all, me, Stevie, Raven, drive up to Tommy Dreamer's house, and from there we do a caravan from Tommy's house all the way down to the Manhattan Center, and we all meet up. We all have our ECW jackets and shirts and gear on, and as like a team, like a sports team, walk into the building. And this is like maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon or noonish, and there's people lined up already outside for Monday Night Raw, which is going to be I believe it was 8 o'clock at the time, and we kind of got like an ECW chant walking in the building. And then the cool thing is just walking in on the set, because we were in the world's most famous bingo hall, ECW, where the roof leaked when it rains, and it was 100 degrees in the summer, and here we were walking into a professionally lit studio with a nice ring and catering, and we walk in. It was surreal. It was very cool. And I remember there was an issue when we first got to the building, because they're like, okay, your locker room's up these flights of steps, and like a bunch of ants, we march up the steps. Oh no, you're dressing down here. And Taz was like, they're already ribbing us, brother. They're fucking ribbing us. And we're just popping or whatever. And then we're walking around, and I introduce myself to everybody, as you do, and we walk into where catering is, and my favorite, besides being on Monday Night Raw, one of my favorite moments was Tommy Dreamer walking up to me, and his very serious face, he goes, Meanie, I'm having a hard time keeping my game face. I was like, why? He goes, they have cheesecake. Tommy Dreamer, the innovator of violence, the most hardcore of the hardcore, who did the chair shot, heard around the world, took cheese graters to the forehead, got choke slammed from every angle of the ECW arena by Brian Lee, went through every table. His weakness is cheesecake. So I popped for that. So but then the reality sets in that we're going to be on live TV, and kind of go through like a run through of what we're doing, and then it's game time. You get dressed, and at the time the BWO was kind of doing the NWO thing, where we didn't come through the regular entrance, we came through the crowd. So we had to figure out a way for us to go through the crowd from the locker room. So we're walking through. And there's a part of the Manhattan Center which was like Command Central. It's like looking at it's like you're on the Enterprise in Star Trek. Monitors everywhere, and people at control stations and hitting buttons and that, and you're seeing angles that aren't even on TV yet, and this and stuff, and you're just like, wow. And we're walking through there in our half shirts and Daisy Dukes, with the one guy who's leading us to the entrance, and we just stop and like look, and they're like, who are these guys in a half shirt and Daisy Dukes just hanging out here? They're like, can you please not stand over our shoulders? So we go into this little stairwell that led out to the door to where we were going through to make our entrance. And no matter how much you wrestle, or how many taped matches you do, the first time you know you're about to be on live TV is just the most nerve-wracking thing. I was winded just from nerves. Your mouth is dry and your heart's in your throat. But once that music kicked on, and Paulie, teased us coming out and they hit the BWO music. If you watch us run, we could have probably ran through a brick wall. And the big rib of it was like, I hopped over the rail and Stevie hops over after me and kind of gives me this little shove, like, ah. So the next weekend, everybody's ribbing Stevie. Did you see Meanie Stevie push Meanie out of the way? And ribbing him about. But we got to throw out, you look out in the crowd and there's BWO shirts and you're looking at the thing and there's the red lights on and all this stuff, and it's just like the most surreal thing to be this kid who grew up a severe asthmatic in Atlantic City, that nobody thought I was ever going to be a professional wrestler, and then within a year and a half I'm in one of the hottest wrestling promotions in ECW, and then in a couple of years I'm on live television with my best friends, invading the WWE with the coolest company in the wrestling world at the time, ECW, to promote our first ever pay-per-view. It was surreal. And then the next weekend, Paulie comes to us and says that the wrestle one of our greatest opponents of all time, Little Guido. Little Guido is, again, one of the most underrated wrestlers, one of the best wrestlers ECW had, to wrestle Little Guido. And that weekend, the next weekend, Paulie had said that the quarter hour rating that we were on beat Nitro, because apparently people they're making fun of the NWO on WWE, and the BWO was the first time that Vince McMahon had publicly acknowledged the New World Order. He goes, these guys, the Blue World Order, take off of the clothing line, New World Order. So he wouldn't even say in wrestling fashion. He's like, the clothing line, New World Order. So from that point on, people are like, oh, people are making fun of the NWO and to watch us. And it was one of the coolest things I ever got to do.
It's hard to believe wrestling was that exciting at one point.
Dude, that era, I mean, I always loved wrestling, and I would watch it every week religiously, no matter what. I would scan the channels looking for wrestling that wasn't even listed on TV. Saturdays, everybody's going to the park, playing sports, and I'm sitting at home, with the controller. I'm watching my normal WWE, and then eventually we got Jim Crockett Promotions. I would find wrestling from Hawaii on the Financial News Network that had like the little, stock market ticker at the bottom, or anything. At midnight, ESPN would have, AWA and stuff like that. But then they started getting into the pay-per-views. But then came along, the Monday Night Wars. And we had talked about, wrestling in Philadelphia. Philadelphia was a test market. Philadelphia was the precursor to the Monday Night Wars too, because there would be occasional times where WWE would run the Spectrum and Jim Crockett Promotions would run the Civic Center. Exact same night, exact same time, and they would both have packed houses. So that was a little bit. That was a precursor to the excitement that would lead up to the Monday Night Wars, where you never knew who was going to show up on WCW. You never knew what was going to happen on Raw. And they were trying, and thankfully for that, that era, because WWE had become a little bit complacent. This lit a fire under the WWE, under Vince McMahon's ass to, overtake the wrestling world. And thank God he did, because, there's a lot of times where, there's a lot of lean years in WWE, and thank God for Stone Cold came along and Austin 316. But that era of wrestling, and to be a part of it, the WWE was up here, WCW was up here, ECW might have been here, but it was always called the Big Three. ECW was, nobody ever said, the big two companies. ECW was considered part of that sphere of success and notoriety, that it was called the Big Three. So, yeah, it was a good time to be in the wrestling business.